Greetings, I'm Lama Tantrapa, and I want to welcome you to the introductory webinar dedicated to peak performance in the healing arts. What we will explore today in our webinar will be also the beginning of a series of webinars that will be delving deeper into the use of the energy arts in alternative health practices, such as massage, acupuncture or acupressure, as well as naturopathic and chiropractic medicine. Today, I would like to share with you the overview of what we are going to be exploring, and also why you, as an alternative health professional, would be able to benefit from participating in this program. First of all, I want to thank you for being a professional dedicated to alternative health fields, because being involved in the alternative health means you are dedicated to helping thousands of people improve the quality of their lives. It's a very important profession to be in, and you are one of the bodhisattvas, one of the people dedicated to empowerment and enlightenment of others. Because this is very important work, I also want to support you in this work. Many of us work for ourselves, so we have to rely on our own support systems. That often means we don't really get a lot of support. I want to offer you this type of support that you wish you would have when you just started your practice. Some people massage the muscles, need the tissues. Those are massage therapists or body workers. Others may be adjusting the bones and joints in the spine and elsewhere in the body. They are often referred to as chiropractors or perhaps osteopaths. There are some practitioners who poke their clients with needles. They are often referred to as acupuncturists. And of course, as an acupuncturist, you may also be prescribing some herbs or even some exercise such as Qigong. And finally, there is also a naturopathic physician prescribing supplements or perhaps lifestyle changes that would be beneficial for their patients. All of these modalities address the health of the organism, health of the individual, from a variety of different angles. And let me give you an idea what we are working on. We are working on integrating these angles in such a way that you really develop a holistic approach. You really develop the ability to facilitate and promote the healing of the person from within. Not just by fixing their bones because they're out of alignment. Not just by pushing on the acupressure points or doing something to the muscles to manipulate them into greater relaxation. Yes, you can relax the person, at least while they're on the table. But then when they get up off the table, they have to deal with gravity once again. And all the holding patterns and habitual stereotypes of tension come back, maybe in a few hours or in a few days. Of course, it's great for the business, but it also can offer some room for improvement in terms of the holistic approach to health. And so what we're going to be exploring is both how to improve your ability to facilitate people's healing, as well as how to improve your bottom line of the business. Being in the business of holistic health, you are dealing with not just the symptoms, but hopefully the root causes of the issues. So unlike allopathic physicians that prescribe pills and medications by and large, you are probably learning and practicing how to address the essence of what is happening with a person, and instead of just trying to cover up the symptoms, actually addressing the root causes. Now, when we look at the root causes, then we can go deeper and deeper, and the deeper we go, the more challenging it may appear. And so what we learn is how to really recognize that energy is what we have to focus our attention on. By energy, I mean the life force. By energy, I mean the flow of qi in your body. And as a matter of fact, just like modern physics tell us that everything in our universe is made of energy, the same also applies to alternative health. Everything in the human body is made of energy. The entire body is not just a meat suit. If we talk about the body and mind being the two sides of a proverbial coin, so we can look at one side or look at the other side, how can we practice mind-body medicine so that we would actually address both sides? Well, the energy is the stuff that this proverbial coin is made of. So you can consider that when we practice the energy arts or the energy healing modalities, we actually deal with the essence of the organism, not just one side of it or the other. Of course, it's important to recognize that a lot of health issues are also psychosomatic, and so we have to address the psychosomatic components of health by recognizing that just working with the body, just relaxing the muscles or putting the bones in alignment is not going to be enough. How do we do that? In our webinar series, we will be addressing also the ways to uncover certain aspects of a person's psyche that are responsible for some stereotypical patterns of tension that often lead to energy blockages that often wreak havoc in the person's life. When we do that, we actually empower the person to heal from within. And that is a really crucial point. We awaken the healer within rather than just doing some therapeutic interventions. Every health professional that I've ever spoken to wholeheartedly agreed with me that people heal when and to the degree that they're ready to heal. If you agree with this assertion, then let's see what is it that facilitates healing, and also how we can empower the person that we work with to start taking responsibility for their own health and healing. Before we go into the exploration of this subject, let me invite you on a journey. On a journey around the island. And the first book that I wrote, called The Art of Being in the Flow, I wrote about this metaphorical way of looking at the human being as an island. Of course, it's contrary to the popular song that says, no, man is an island. So, if we look at the individual from bird's eye point of view, we can see that this island is like a coral atoll. It has a lagoon in the middle, and it has a strip of land all around it. You'll see why I'm using this metaphor in just a second. In my travels around the world, I've been to many tropical islands, and most of them have villages on different sides of the island. The people who live in each village have tendency to build their houses facing a particular direction, most likely where the ocean is. So if you're a child born and raised in one of these villages, you would be told by your parents, grandparents, and other elders in the village that when you grow up, You will build your own house. And your house will need to face this direction, because this is the most important direction in our lives. If you build your house in any other direction, that's not good. Because those directions, they're wrong. The people on the other side of the island, they build their houses facing in those directions. And that's just not right. As a matter of fact, there are some islanders living on the other side of the island who build their houses facing completely opposite direction. That's just wrong. That must be just downright evil. So if you get indoctrinated in this way of thinking, you of course will be building your house facing the direction where every other house in your village is facing. However, if you do build a house facing somewhere else, you may get ostracized, you may be criticized, or even kicked out of the village. Those things would be terrible, of course, but on the other hand, it also means that you will have an opportunity to explore what's going on in other sides of the island. And that is an interesting opportunity to learn about the reasons why people build their houses facing elsewhere. On each side of the island, people build their houses facing in their respective directions. And they strongly believe that those directions are the most important ones. Those are the right ones. And all others are wrong. So you see where I'm going with that. The more villages you visit around the island, the more you will learn about the relativity of what is right and what is wrong. The more you will discover that nothing is perfectly good or perfectly bad. Depending on perspective, it may appear to be so. But it's always subject to change as soon as perspective changes. If you build your house facing one way, but the ocean is on some other way, well, that will feel inadequate or somehow awkward. Perhaps you won't get the view of the ocean. However, what we learn is that none of these directions is inherently good or bad. And as we learn how to release the attachments or expectations that some things are good or some things are bad, we realize that there are many ways to address health and improve the quality of life of each individual, depending on specific situation that that person is in. So that is what led me to the development of this new profession called Qigong coaching. In the year 2000, I pioneered this approach to energy arts, but I didn't start practicing it right away. For a number of years, I operated Portland Qigong Clinic. That was at that time one of the few clinics in the entire country of the United States that was exclusively focusing on using Qigong therapy. And I was very successful at helping people heal when they were seeing me. But I also noticed that when they would go home, and they would usually see me just for 1 hour per week, so they would go home and the rest of the week was up to them. The following week, they would again experience some tensions or some energy blockages or some other challenges that reminded me of their challenges the week prior. In other words, they were backsliding. They were not improving at the pace that they could have had they done the homework. The reason why they were backsliding was because they were not doing the homework that I prescribed to them. I was prescribing some exercises, I was prescribing some lifestyle changes, I was prescribing some meditation practices, some breathing practices, and so on. And I noticed that people were not doing those practices. They were not implementing the changes in their lives that they prescribed to them. In other words, there was a compliance issue. As a matter of fact, The issue of compliance is one of the main challenges that both allopathic as well as alternative health professionals deal with in their practices. So I started exploring the ways to address this issue and started learning the modality of coaching called meta-coaching with Michael Hall. What I realized was people were not doing what they were told to do because they were not the ones who decided to take that course of action. They were not the ones who made the decision, who made the choice. So choice making and taking responsibility for that choice goes hand in hand with the ability to implement that choice. That eventually allowed me to create the methodology of integrating the ancient energy arts with the methods of life coaching as well as sports coaching and executive coaching in a way that they support each other, they dovetail beautifully. What also happened? I experienced a dramatic boost in the quality of services that I provided to people. Everybody who I was working with got a lot healthier, a lot faster. They were also more satisfied with their qualities of life and with the qualities of my services. They were happy that they were paying me the money that they were paying. And back then, I wasn't even charging that much. I started with $100 an hour charge and eventually raised the rate up to $150. Well, now, 13 years later, I am working on developing Qigong coaches and helping other alternative health professionals to integrate Qigong coaching methodologies in their professions, in their health modalities. The reason for that is because Qigong coaching may be a fantastic standalone practice, but it also can work beautifully in conjunction with other alternative health practices, be that massage or acupuncture or naturopathic medicine or chiropractic. What we do is we learn how to empower our clients or patients so that they start taking responsibility and taking charge for their own health and healing. It's very empowering because when the person recognizes that they are given the opportunity to heal themselves, and they also see that there are certain cause and effect connections. And as a coach, I help people connect the dots. And of course, as a health professional, you also do something similar in your practice. So there are some parallels that we want to capitalize on. We help people connect the dots so that they recognize that there are certain cause and effect connections between their actions and the health consequences. For example, if you eat this food, or you smoke this, or you live in certain conditions, you will have corresponding results. For example, if you smoke, what are the results of smoking? Well, there's going to be an effect on your respiratory system, there's going to be an effect on your circulatory system, there's going to be an effect on the way that you perceive the world. You're giving yourself a certain excitatory boost temporarily, and then you develop a craving. So that's also what we refer to as addiction. Now, that not only applies to smoking, it applies to a lot of other things. Be that intake of certain foods or drinks, or the quality of exercise that people do or don't do. A lot of people live sedentary lifestyles. As a result of doing that, they develop obesity, which is a major epidemic, both in America and in many other countries in the world. They also lose the muscle tone. and flexibility. You use it or you lose it, as they say. So if you don't use your physical body in a vigorous enough manner, you actually start losing your physical abilities. Now, a lot of people in our culture in general, and in health professions in particular, have a tendency to focus on the forms or on appearances. So people exercise, but they do that so that they would look better. They want to have six-pack abs, or they want to have big biceps, or whatever else they want to grow on their bodies so that they would look better. On the other hand, if you are really exercising a holistic approach, your attention shifts from the appearance to the inner essence. And that inner essence is pure energy. So as we talked about, everything in the human body is being made of energy. We actually need to learn how to apply this energy awareness in our healing modalities. And when we do that, our healing becomes a lot more profound. We actually start addressing the inner essence of what's going on with a person, rather than dealing with the superficial improvement of how they look. What we do is we help people tap into their energy flow. Most people don't pay attention to the energy, so of course they don't pay attention to the flow of it. As a result of that, they are constantly feeling like they're just being tossed by the waves on the ocean of life. If you ask the person, how are things going? Often you will hear, well, up and down, What does it mean? It means they literally are being tossed by these waves up and down. As these waves flow, they constantly affect us. And if we're not paying attention to these waves, there is no chance for us to surf these waves. There is no chance for us to be in the flow. What we learn is how to pay attention to the flow of the energy waves in our lives, in our organism, in our relationships, in our environment, in our business, and then we learn how to surf these waves. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to develop the quality of attention that most people never even get in their lives. The quality of attention that allows us to focus on energy. That, in turn, requires developing a certain state of consciousness that I refer to as Qigong state. And by definition, Qigong state is a state of consciousness in which you can perceive the flow of Qi and be in the flow. When you develop the ability to enter Qigong state, you also provide the crucial example. You can only teach your patients or your clients by example how to be in the flow. You cannot really teach how to be in the flow if you are not in the flow. It'll be immediately obvious that it's hypocritical and it won't work. Not even adults, the children are instant detectors of hypocrisy. And so a practitioner who is not in the flow will immediately become inauthentic when they communicate to their clients telling them that they should be in the flow. But if you are in a flow, you will have no problem both educating your clients as well as providing them the role model. Now this is very powerful because it means your clients or your patients will actually start learning how to be in the flow, and it doesn't need to be your flow. As a matter of fact, if they try to get into your flow, what's going to happen? They won't be in their own flow. They can't really be in your flow either because they have different physique, different energy and mentality, and they're not focusing on their own flow, so that they will be not in the flow. They will have to learn how to be in their own authentic flow, which means they will have to really develop that level of authenticity where they're not trying to copy somebody. They're not trying to emulate the flow. They actually are authentically learning how to be in their own flow. That is also something that can improve the quality of anybody's life, because authenticity leads to freedom. And the way that we express our freedom through our physical bodies, through our movement, through our verbal and other expressions, then becomes a real artwork. So we actually start living an artistic, a very authentic and free lifestyle. Even if a person still continues to experience some health issues, they will enjoy living this way a lot better. And when they feel that the quality of life is improving, they will want to work with you more, because they see, and you will help them to see, the cause and effect connections. You do this, you get this result. You do that, you get those results. Now, which results do you resonate better with? If you want these results, getting them by following that course of action is impossible, because that course of action leads to those results. Expecting these results from that course of action is insanity. When you really put it so clearly and so obviously on the table, your clients will see the writing on the wall. They will recognize that there are certain simple choices that they can make that will lead them to the results that they're looking for. And again, it's very empowering, and it's not based on any assumptions of what is right and what's wrong for them. So you're not cramming them into any box. You are not pigeonholing them into any particular paradigm, so that you would just address them as another example of particular disease. What you're doing is you're giving them the freedom to discover for themselves what they resonate with. Now, that resonance is the perfect replacement of the belief in good and bad. As I mentioned one metaphor in the beginning of our webinar, let me use another one. I borrowed it actually from the Old Testament. In my studies, I not only studied Tibetan Buddhism and other types of Buddhism, but also learned a few things about Western religions and spiritual schools of thought. The Old Testament has a story about the Adam and Eve, who lived happily in paradise at some point, when they were happy walking around naked. They were not ashamed of each other or of themselves. They were in harmony, both with each other, with the world that they lived in, with the powers that be. And then they got into this nasty habit of munching onto the fruit from the tree of good and evil, tree of knowledge. As soon as they developed this black and white perception of things, where some things are good and some things are bad, they could no longer be in harmony with each other. They started feeling ashamed, they started covering themselves up. They could no longer live in harmony with the paradise. They got kicked out of it. They were no longer in harmony with the divine powers that they lost the connection with. If you see that the root cause of that loss of paradise was the belief in good and evil, obviously holding on to that belief system will consistently keep giving you the results that it gave to poor Adam and Eve. And essentially this is the root cause of human suffering. Now, it's very consistent with the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni, of course. Buddhists often consider that the cause of suffering is attachment and aversions, certain desires and certain judgments. Attachment to things that we deem good and aversion of those things that we deem bad. However, if we don't want to use this good and bad dualistic way of looking at things anymore, the question is, what are we going to replace it with? We have to make choices somehow, right? And that's exactly where the principle of energy resonance comes handy. Instead of looking at the labels that say good or say bad, this food is good for you, that food is bad for you. Doing this exercise is good, doing that is bad. Or smoking is not good, breathing is much better. All of this is just examples of reading labels that were imposed on certain foods or certain courses of action or certain behaviors by other people. And we know that what resonates with one person may not resonate with everybody else. So this reliance on other people's judgment and other people's assessment of what's good and what's bad is actually inadequate. And if we realize that everything is subject to change, as change is the most constant thing in the universe, we also learn to recognize that none of these labels is permanent. And if they are so impermanent, that relying on them and even putting these labels on things is nonsensical. What was good yesterday may turn out to be not so good tomorrow, and vice versa. What was not so good for you yesterday may not be that bad tomorrow. So what happens is that everything is relative, everything is subject to change, and only one's person energy resonance can and should determine whether or not this particular course of action or this item that they are trying to choose is what is most appropriate for them at this moment in their lives. Once you realize that there is a methodology for making choices in life, making any on energy resonance, then it's just a matter of learning how to pay attention to the energy. You can't determine whether or not you're in resonance with something if you don't pay attention to the energy. So you have to develop the quality of attention that allows you to sense the resonance. You can also test for it. So you don't just rely on your own subjective feeling of energy resonance. You can also invite another person to help you test. In the following webinars, we will start exploring how to test for energy resonance. And we will learn how to do this in a way that is somewhat similar to muscle testing, except in muscle testing, also known as applied kinesiology, there is a certain degree of subjectivity, because as one person is pushing your muscles, or if you're doing that to yourself, you sometimes may feel like there is more pressure, sometimes there is less pressure. And if you're the one on the receiving end of this test, you may be wondering sometimes, so is this really authentic? Is it really trustworthy? Can I really trust that the person who's testing me is not trying to manipulate this test, consciously or unconsciously? What also happens is that the isolation of a particular muscle that is being tested leads to fatigue. As the muscles start getting more and more tired after a few tests, it starts giving you different results. So you can't really trust that. What we do is we use a very alternative way that allows to use the entire body as the testing mechanism, not just an isolated muscle. And we also use the method that allows us to apply the same amount of pressure over and over again, so it is trustworthy and it's functional in a way that allows you to consistently get the same results when you test for something. And if you have that consistency and you have a greater level of authenticity and objectivity in your tests, it's going to be a lot more usable. We also learn is how to develop the ability to implement the understanding of energy resonance in such a way that the person learns to tap into their own internal energy resources that will allow them to both heal themselves and also to follow the course of action that goes beyond healing. Healing simply implies that there is something wrong with you and needs to be taken care of or fixed. But health is not merely an absence of disease. So we learn how to improve our vitality and improve not only the quality of life, but also its longevity. We actually recognize that people are not interested only in living a better quality of life, they also enjoy living longer lives. How can we do that? How can we facilitate that? Well, there are certain practices that I'm eager to share with you that will assist with boosting longevity. And the marvelous thing about it is that not only will it boost longevity of your patients, it will also boost longevity of your own healing career, because you will be able to spend less energy and effort on healing people, and thereby you will develop greater efficacy, which means you are literally going to be able to see more patients in the same amount of time, or if you don't want to see more patients, you just want to give yourself a little extra time, that is something that you will also be able to gain because you are more efficient. You also will not burn out. That happens to a lot of alternative health professionals. Working for themselves or working for somebody else, they often get burned out, especially if they have to work with their physical bodies, using a fair amount of physical effort, such as massage therapy. So when a massage therapist, for example, works day in and day out with their hands, kneading people's muscles, that will get old sooner or later. And that means that you will not feel like continuing this practice for much longer. I know that there are some massage therapists that have been in business for a decade or more. The idea is that you can be in practice for your entire career until you decide to retire, and retire comfortably. Now that is an accomplishment for a lot of alternative health professionals. And this is something I also want to talk to you about. How do you make more money from doing what you love doing the most? Healing other people, discover how they can turn their health challenges or other issues in their lives into great learning opportunities. Instead of struggling against the health conditions, they are learning how to find the lessons in them. Usually people who have problems in their lives don't perceive these problems as learning opportunities. Instead, they think that these are big problems that need to be either get rid of or somehow they need to fix them. So in other words, they get into fight or flight response. They want to get rid of it or push it away, or they want to just break through. Well, we know that fight or flight state of consciousness is the main cause of stress in our lives. So in a sense, This is a way to increase the level of stress. When you have more stress, are you going to feel healthier and happier? No, you won't. So if you put yourself in the position of the health client, or perhaps you've experienced it yourself, if you have some health issue, you can look at it from perspective of an opportunity to learn something and grow from it. You can only grow from something if you recognize that it's not a problem, it's a lesson. It's just like if you go to school and take a lecture, but instead of listening to what the professor has to offer, you start picking up a fight with the professor. Well, there is going to be a struggle instead of a learning process. That's exactly what most people go through when they have some health challenges. They struggle against these challenges instead of learning. Now, the methodology of Qigong coaching that I developed is very much dedicated to shifting the perspective from viewing the experience as a problem and trying to get rid of it or fix it, and instead start perceiving it as an opportunity to learn and grow from it, which does enable the you or your patient to see the cause and effect connections. What is the karma involved in this particular experience? When you see the karmic connections, you can actually make choices that take these connections into consideration. You can make more intelligent choices in your life, or you can empower your patient to make more intelligent choices in their lives. If they make choices based on energy resonance, those are going to be the most authentic and usable choices, because they will be able to follow through on these choices. The reason why people don't follow through on choices that are made by others for them is because they're not authentic choices. They don't take into consideration energy resonance. Nobody can know you better than you can know yourself. Knowing yourself is also the course of personal empowerment and enlightenment. Any spiritual path that is worth its salt facilitates knowing oneself. How do we get to know ourselves? We need to pay attention, and we need to learn the lessons that our lives presents to us. Most people learn lessons about their lives in retrospect. So perhaps something happened 10 years ago and you experienced some dramatic event, or perhaps even a traumatic event. Back then, it felt like a terrible problem. Perhaps years or even decades later, you look back and you realize, you know what, that was actually a really powerful lesson that I learned. And I'm grateful now for that lesson to occur in my life. This happened to me many times. I lost the eyesight on one of my eyes. That was a very challenging event at the time, especially since I was a professional martial artist and a stuntman. Believe me, it was not a pleasant experience. However, the fact that I recognized the lesson in it allowed me to not struggle with it, but actually learn a great deal. And even though I haven't regained eyesight on that eye, I learned how important it is to pay attention to the inner essence of the experience, rather than just read the label on the surface of it. Well, that's the bad thing, that's blindness, or that's something else that happens. That is, something to be got rid of, or something to fix. And what happens? The quality of life actually improves rather than diminishes. It's a paradox, and it's something that I invite you to consider and ponder upon until our next webinar. Our next webinar will also address the ways to apply energy awareness to the modality of massage and bodywork. We will explore alignments of the body of massage therapist that allow the massage therapist to be a lot more efficient. We'll also look at the most essential principles of energy alignment. We will learn how to work with the body in a way that will empower the body to discover its own authentic ways to relax and heal. In our second webinar, the following week, we will be focusing our attention on the applications of energy awareness and Qigong coaching in particular to acupuncture and Oriental medicine. Since Qigong is already officially a part of Oriental medicine, one would hope that acupuncturists would be applying Qigong all the time. However, the level of training that most acupuncturists receive in schools of acupuncture isn't enough to really become proficient at Qigong so that it would become a major healing modality in your arsenal. We will change that and make it so that Qigong will become a major tool that you will be able to use as frequently or even more than poking people with the needles. And when you apply needles, you will also be able to use Qigong because that is the essence of acupuncture, working with energy. But instead of manipulating energy, we'll actually learn how to pay attention to the flow and facilitate being in the flow. The following week after that, we will start exploring how to apply energy awareness to the chiropractic profession, where we work with not only with aligning the bones, putting them where they're supposed to be, but understanding why they aren't there in the first place. We can actually empower our clients and patients to transform the way they hold themselves, the way they move, the way they are. You are the way you move. And so you actually will be discovering how to empower your clients and patients to heal from within. And finally, during the fourth week, we will have a webinar dedicated to the applications of Qigong coaching to a naturopathic profession and how the naturopathic physicians can really serve the role of not only a doctor but a coach, meaning the doctor by and large operates on the assumption that he or she knows better than the patient what's right for the patient. The coach, on the other hand, does not have that assumption. Instead, the coach uses the attitude of curiosity and exploration, engaging the coaching client in discovering for themselves what works best for them, to get into that curious and inquisitive state of consciousness, because that is the state of consciousness where they can learn. That is also radically different from the state of consciousness which people have when they perceive their health issues as problems. If they no longer think that they have problems, they start living lives free of problems. What would it be like to live your life free of problems? It would be freaking amazing, wouldn't it? Well, if you can learn how to do that, you can also assist other people in living their lives free of problems. Now that is a powerful modality of healing, isn't it? So what we're doing is we're learning how to discover and apply the principles of energy awareness that will literally transform the way that you approach your healing profession into a more holistic, more efficient, and more lucrative type of work. I will be also offering a complimentary strategy session that is going to be dedicated specifically to making your practice more lucrative and allow you to retire comfortably. Now, I normally charge $250 for an hour of my coaching, and I don't really usually offer just a one-off coaching sessions. I always set up either 3 months or 6 months coaching programs. But just for this program, I'm offering you a coaching session that I charge a lot more for than the cost of the tuition of this program, as a token of my appreciation of your dedication to alternative health and helping thousands of people. And I believe that you not only want to help thousands of people, but also make thousands of dollars every month. And I'm here to support in that as well. I look forward to working with you through the series of our webinars and also during our coaching sessions. Until then, have a wonderful time. Namaste.